Hello everyone, welcome to today's talk. This will be the first in which I talk about foreign policy issues and international relations. Now, you may ask why on earth I am talking about the Spanish flu and the Russian-Ukraine war. How are the two connected at all? Because maybe I am just a bipolar person and I connect these dots without any reason, but bear with me. I promise you there is a phenomenon which is important and it needs addressing this time. Now, before we dive into this discussion, I have to tell something about the responsibility of academics. Similarly to doctors who don't tell the patients when the patient might have a terminal diagnosis that their lives might gonna end in a year or half a year, because the reason for this why they are not telling is in this way they can secure a better quality of life for the remaining time of the patients. It's not dishonest, it's for the best purposes. It does serve a purpose. Now, concerning academics also have a responsibility. Whatever they say publicly, it might affect the social outcomes of any developing circumstance, and they might not want to influence those developing circumstances in a bad way. They want the best for the society, so sometimes they do not provide the whole truth or the exact truth. They might distort it slightly. However, when it is possible to find a solution for an ongoing conflict without harming the academic accuracy, we should follow that way. But first of all, it was important to clarify that yes, academics do have a certain political responsibility. Now, going back to the question how the Spanish flu is connected to the Ukraine-Russian war, is the censorship. In this slide, you can read it out that the likely origins of the H1N1 virus in 1918 was probably Kansas, United States, and the press in those countries which were at war was suppressed and they couldn't report about the pandemic. Therefore, when the Spanish king fell ill due to the virus, the Spanish press started reporting about it extensively. Hence the name. However, the origin wasn't Spain. It was somewhere else. Now, this is the connection. I believe concerning the Ukraine-Russian war, there is something similar in the air. Even academics do not tell the whole picture. So maybe they want to secure the positive public opinion about the support, non-lethal and lethal support for Ukraine. And this is the hypothetical territory. What if academics do not tell the truth in the Western societies, so the aid towards Ukraine find a favorable public opinion? Well, let's find out. What are the main academics say about the war at the moment? In bold, those are the main messages which emerged after 2022. So in the fall of 2022, Ukraine could recapture some territories in the northeastern part of the country near Kharkiv and in the southern regions near Kherson. Another important message that although Russia mobilized its forces it's not a successful mobilization, and so far tanks, heavy artillery couldn't appear on the front line. Maybe it's mostly just the infantry. And the third main message, that when the Western countries provided tanks arrive at Ukraine, that may serve a good basis for a broader Ukrainian counteroffensive later in 2023. Now let's check the validity of these claims. First of all, we have to admit that near Kharkiv, in the northeastern territory of Ukraine, it was a big military success indeed. And concerning this, it's important to note that Ukraine performed such a military maneuver which was typical for the Russians. In the Second World War, Operation Bagration started with a deceptive attack in the south, and the Germans could regroup some of their military, and it weakened the army group center. And when the Russians could reckon that yes, the Germans started moving away forces from the main army group center, that's when they attacked at the center, and within weeks army group center was completely annihilated. This occurred in 1944, on the summer of 1944, and that was one of the largest success of the Red Army in the Second World War. Now, capturing the territory near Kharkiv started with a deceptive attack near Kherson, and after the Russians started mobilizing their troops to defend Kherson, that's when the main attack against the Kharkiv region occurred. Now, territory-wise, it was a great one. However, military-wise, it wasn't a big deal, because it was mostly just military police that was located in that area. The Russians didn't really defend that territory. Concerning the other area, Kherson, it's necessary to tell that the right side of the Dnieper was too expensive for the Russians to defend. Therefore, it was a tactical and strategic reversal of the troops, and they withdrew the troops with the approval of Vladimir Putin himself. So it wasn't a Ukrainian success, it was a planned Russian military operation. Now, the second claim, that tanks did not yet appear on the front from the Russians, has to be explained. At the moment, the winter weather is unexpectedly warm, and the terrain couldn't freeze. Therefore, on the terrain, heavy machinery cannot move. It may sink. So the Russians are just patient enough to wait until the spring dries the terrain up, and it's likely they will deploy the tanks later during the spring. Rasputnitsa is the famous mud in this Eastern European flat, which happens in October, November, and sometimes in early spring. The third claim, that with the coming high-tech tanks, Ukraine might turn the tide of the war and launch a larger military offensive, is really problematic. There are very optimistic sources, for example the CNN and the Ukraine, the Kiev Post, that claims that Russia had about 10,000 tanks before the war, but only 2,000 of them were operational, and they launched all of them on Ukraine. And they lost more than 1,000. The Ukraine source claims it was more than 1,500. Now, concerning these numbers, 300 tanks might seem enough. However, it's unlikely that Russia would deploy all its operational tanks into one war and leave all the other territories undefended. I don't believe these sources are true, and it's likely that there are at least 5,000 reserve tanks available for the Russians. And the second argument here is important too. The front line is very, very long. It's about 800, close to 900 kilometers. And the Ukrainian army cannot mobilize many people. Their troops might be about 200,000. And if they launch an offensive, it's just a question which part of the country. It's a very long line, and it might take years to recapture all the territory what Russia occupied. Let's see this on a map. The purple territories are the ones what Ukraine recaptured in the fall of 2022. On the northeast, that's the Kharkiv region, and the smaller region is the right bank of the Dnieper River, and that's Kherson, which was a tactical withdrawal. And the question is, which area will Ukraine launch a counter-offensive? It doesn't seem likely that they could recapture all this territory. It is larger than 100 square kilometers altogether. Crimea is only 27,000 square kilometers. It's a big area. And once the Russian entrench themselves, it can be a nightmare to purge them out. Okay, at this stage, you might ask why I am saying all this. I am an academic myself. I am not responsible to keep the Western public optimistic about the fate of the war for Ukraine. Well, I believe it's not the case. Ukraine cannot win this war. The numbers are simple. Russia has an overwhelming military deployment capability, and it is just a question of time when the Ukraine army might collapse. Maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, I don't know. But I don't think Russia can be defeated in this war. Coming back to the presentation, I show you some positive signs that reveal that maybe the Western leadership is changing its opinion about the fate of this war. First, in November last year, former US military experts started expressing their worries about Ukraine, whether it is useless to send more lethal aid because Russia cannot be defeated. Joe Biden visited Kiev recently, and the question is, why would Janet Yellen, the Minister of Finance of the United States, visit Ukraine in secret? I believe she just wanted to start the negotiations about the possible reconstruction of Ukraine, and she just wanted to soften Zelensky up a bit about the financial circumstances that are coming. Why would she promise and reassure Zelensky that the financial aid was coming. It doesn't make sense. For this reason, it's not necessary for her to travel to Ukraine. I believe there was something else going on. And also, the New York Times published an editorial that claims that the leadership of the Western states could do more to start negotiating a peace treaty, because one of the German televisions performed a poll, and the public opinion in Germany is that Western leaders didn't go far enough to secure peace before the war. Now, an additional reason why I'm saying this is New Zealand. Recently, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Chris Hipkins, announced that the country continues to support Ukraine because everything Ukraine is fighting for is held dear for New Zealand as well. Well, I'm asking, okay, democracy is dear, territorial integrity is dear, sovereignty is dear, yeah. Human life? How many lives should be still lost? How many lives more? Now, the reason why I mention New Zealand is during the Cold War there was a peace movement in New Zealand which started claiming that the Western powers, especially the United States, should withdraw from Vietnam. And the peace movement inherited a claim: no war in Vietnam, in the 1960s. And it was that period when the country started perceiving the United States as a rather militaristic state than the USSR, the Soviet Union, which was very strange, but that was the basis which later served to implement nuclear-free policy, which is one of the key elements of the New Zealand identity. So I believe New Zealand could play a role to convince Western states to incentivize Ukraine to start negotiating a peace treaty, because there's no reason to lose more people in this useless war. Thank you for watching, share your thoughts, and see you in the next one.